On August 3rd, 2013, I died for a minute and a half and was resuscitated in an ambulance after suffering a heart attack. I've said that having a near-death experience is completely transformative. From having something like that happen, you are never the same again. When you've experienced something that intense, you want to share it, but to describe these things that you've felt, that you've seen, you sound kind of nuts.
This woman that worked for me, she called and said, "Hey, there's a guy that just came in and he was asking for you." And I told him that you didn't work on Friday night. He said his name is David. So I thought to myself, David, I don't really know a David. It bothered me a little bit for a while because I didn't know who this man was. About a week and a half later, I was at home and I was building what's called a spirit portal. It's basically a guitar amp with a couple of guitar pedals. One's a noise gate to get rid of white noise and static, and the other is reverb. You should be able to hear them and understand what they're saying. As soon as I turned it on, I get a voice. The voice says, "I want to talk to Scott." "I'm Scott. Who's this? What's your name?" The voice came back and said, "This is David."
Wow.
That
was
is
cool.
lives. I'm telling you, we have such stories to tell, Bob.
Oh
I want
my God.
to introduce you. I want to introduce you to my friends who are listening. Some of you may watch Paranormal Project radio show. Some of you just may be friends of mine online. I want to thank you all for being here, but I need to introduce you to my friend, Robert Neal Marshall. And we have a little bit of a history, don't we?
A little bit, and it's building. It's exciting. The more I learn about your life, it's really crazy remarkable. That's why I'm looking forward to doing this show with you. You know, it's crazy.
It is going to be a lot of fun. And I think even how we met was quite interesting. I mean, we did meet a while back,
Right.
it was your near-death experience, and I was doing the show, and I thought, geez, that'd be really interesting to have you on the show.
Right.
Hi, Melissa. How are you? Melissa Blackman. Hello. Nice to see you, my friend.
Hey, Melissa.
And we have Nancy Rebello. Hi, Nancy. Good to see you as well.
Hey, Nancy.
And there's Adam. Adam, there he is.
Okay, Adam as well. Hi, everybody. I'm glad you guys are joining us. This is cool.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I was going to have you on the show, right?
Right.
And before then, I announced that John Zaffis was going to be in my show. And for those who don't know John Zaffis is the haunted collector from Sci-Fi. Right. He'd also been on episodes of The Haunting, telling his story. Right. So Robert sends an email and says, "You're not going to believe this. He's an actor, and he's going to tell you a little bit about himself in a minute, but I played John Zaffis in a couple of episodes of The Haunting, but I never met him, right? We were on set at different times." And I said, "Well, hey, you want to come on and meet the real John Zaffis? I can introduce the fake John Zaffis to the real John Zaffis." And that was it. And after that, this friendship just kind of built. And and we realized we have a lot of things that are kind of just,
it's kind of spooky in a way. It's uncanny. I mean, the overlaps, what people call coincidences, right? But, we've talked a lot about this, and I'm sure others feel the same. There's no such thing as a coincidence. I believe that less and less,
Yeah, I would agree. How many times can a coincidence happen when it's no longer a coincidence anymore?
Oh, I thought that was a real question. I was going like, I don't know. Wait, 3 times, 4? No.
At least 5.
At least 5. Then it's not a coincidence anymore,
Yeah, John is a great guy, Melissa. He is. He's a super nice guy.
So Melissa knows John Zaffis. Okay, cool.
Yeah, she's in the paranormal field as well. I met Melissa.
Oh, okay. I'm kind of new to this in a way, which is weird because it's been part of my entire life, but this is kind of new to me in really beginning to embrace it and talk about it, which I think is sort of part of it all.
Well, I think, I would love for you to share with everyone who you are, not just the near-death experience, but you have a very interesting history anyway. I mean, where you came from and what you do, and you do a lot of things that most of us don't get to do, which I'm just envious of. But share a little bit about yourself and what you've done.
Oh, you're very kind. I mean, you're the one with the show, this marvelous radio show and the blog and the whole thing. Basically, I started off as an actor. As a kid, I did industrial films and commercials and things, and then my parents wanted me to get a regular education and go to school and get a regular degree. But my background's film production. I went 2 years to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. I had an agent at the time and was, doing some stuff. And they said, Bob, if you're going to keep doing this, I was right out of high school, we need you to get some professional training. And I had an acting teacher in high school, Martha Robinson. I loved her to pieces. And she always talked about her years at the Academy. And it was the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. So I spent 2 years there. And then I really loved film production, was doing some behind the scenes things. My grandfather was a filmmaker. He was a newsreel cameraman during World War II and actually took some of the very rare color film footage of the D-Day landings in Normandy, among other things. And so I kind of wanted to follow in his footsteps. So I ended up going to NYU, getting a film degree. And I got a job in Germany shortly thereafter, in Austria, filming with some really cool people that knew Rainier Fassbinder, a famous German filmmaker, and really amazing team of people. Came back to the United States. And as you do in this industry, you have to do lots of odd jobs until you become so immensely rich and famous that you never have to do those jobs again. But that's the rare cream of the crop. So I learned a lot of computer skills, and I got an internship working for a producer in London, England, named Richard Armitage, who was reviving a musical called Me and My Girl, which was a 1930s musical his father had written many years earlier, was a huge hit. And Richard was, I guess, agent to, I guess you could say, the up and coming famous, and some of the young kids on their roster. We were all about the same age as Emma Thompson, Hugh Laurie, Stephen Fry, Tilda Swinton. He had Rowan Atkinson as a client. An older client then was David Frost, who people might know as the interviewer. And I really had this rare opportunity. And it was my computer skills from doing temporary work in between jobs that got me my work permit. And the show was Me and My Girl. It went to Broadway. It won several Tony Awards. It won Best Musical in London against Les Miserables, which everyone thought was going to win. And, it's throughout that period of time, it really introduced me to a lot of really cool people. And Richard very tragically and suddenly died at only 58 years old. And I guess a lot of careers changed. And I came back to the United States and explored different areas, but got back into film and television, did casting, and have done some film work, directed some independent documentaries, which I guess we'll talk about, one related to part of my own health and life. God, it's embarrassing and hard to talk about oneself, but that's kind of a nutshell. You can go online and read all the other dirty details if you Google me. I guess.
But you got to be in the Oval Office, which I find quite amusing.
The Oval Office?
Maybe not the real Oval Office.
Oh, well, I mean, I was casting associate for Pat Moran on a show called Veep with Julia Louis-Dreyfus, where they recreated the many of the White House. In fact, it's really funny because they filmed this show, of all places where I live, is in Columbia, Maryland. It's between Baltimore and Washington, D.C. And they filmed in a warehouse right near us. And The Wire was filmed in a warehouse, which is now a fabulous Wegmans grocery store. And I don't think a lot of people who go there realize there was a lot of film and television done in the Baltimore area. We have a wonderful film office. Jack Gerbis is the director. And a lot of films and TV shows have been shot here. It's really kind of cool.
What about House of Cards? Because you were on
House of Cards. Yes.
What I was thinking. Now, I don't know if you were actually in the Oval Office on House.
No, that was I had one scene. If people watch it or they want to look it up, or you've got it on a DVD or whatever, it was the last season after Kevin Spacey left the show and Robin Wright was there. It was Greg Kinnear and Diane Lane, and they needed someone to play a very wealthy sort of associate who was doing dealings with the former president, but prior to his death in the TV series. So I'm there to establish the power of the shepherds and these friends there. So I played a character named Scotty Tibbs, and it was really cool because the scene had all these great people in it, and I'm standing there with all these people going, you know, what am I doing here? But it felt good, and they were really lovely, and it ended up on the DVD cover, which I thought was really cool, and a lot of the promo. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. But these jobs come and go quickly, and I think in this industry, you're constantly recreating yourself and constantly auditioning and constantly looking. That was the job for as John Zaffis. It was through New Dominion Pictures. It was actually down in Virginia Beach is where they filmed that. They had these fabulous studio sets, and I guess I kind of looked a little bit like John, and they did these reenactment things where they would interview the actual person, and then we would have dialogue and scenes that would play out. And one of them was literally a possession scene. One episode was called The Possessed, and it was quite exciting to film that. But John recorded his segments in a studio separately, so I never got to meet him. So what an honor to be on your show and get to actually talk with him. And
well, I got to tell you, I mean, the fact, you know, I'm like this, you know, the fact that I get to actually hang out with you and do this thing that we're doing is
it's cool.
It's amazing. It really is amazing. I mean, I've had 25 years of regional theater. I love being on stage, but I never thought I'd be on a real stage, you know, with someone who's done real stuff. So this is a big deal for me too.
Well, it's a wonderful collaborative process. I want to publicly, you know, give you kudos, Scott, because you have been a wonderful guiding force, and, you know, collaborative. You're great to work with. People don't realize how much energy it takes and what focus and, you know, how many meetings it takes to constantly be going over script and notes and promotion and, you know, all of these things to make it happen. And it's been quite a commitment, not knowing exactly where something new like this is going to go. This is a bit of an experiment, isn't it, in a way, to tell our private stories.
You know, so for people who don't know, you can see the sign right here, Providence of the Heart, and it is not a love story. It's certainly not our love story, but you know, it really is. It is about those everyday affirmations that life is truly eternal. And in your case, the past lives, it's the premonition, it's the near-death experience. For me, it's the ghost story. It's the open mediumship. And it's all these things that make people scratch their heads and say, I feel like maybe I've experienced some of this.
Is this real? Did this really happen? How do you explain some of this stuff? But over and over and over again, you keep getting validations, and you can't ignore it after a point, you know?
So this is a piece of theater. This is actually a piece of theater. This is live on stage.
Right.
And it's all those things you always wanted to ask about, but didn't know who to talk to, you know, and here you are, you have a person who has crossed into the light, and someone who talks to people who have crossed into the light, and somehow on stage, we hope we can leave people with a little bit of hope that there's something beyond this world. Really and truly is what it's all about.
Absolutely. I found, and I'm sure you do in your own work, and other people out there might really appreciate this. You know, a lot of people, you know, who learned that I had a near-death experience. I had a massive heart attack 10 years ago. I went into VFib, the Widowmaker, and I was clinically dead a minute and a half, and they resuscitated me and brought me back. And, you know, everybody says, well, did you see the light, Bob? Did you see the light? And I'm like, yeah, I saw the light, and the light is real. It was for me. And then there were a lot of changes. Oh, Nancy, you're a survivor. So you certainly can appreciate it. But there were a lot of changes and things. But when I have one-on-one conversations with people, there's signs, I guess you could say, in a way someone would say something, or a conversation or something that comes up, that it's like it's okay to mention the topic or to say something. And I don't always feel that. But when I do, and I talk to somebody, the end result seems to be very uplifting for both of us. And the person's like, thank you. That was just what I needed to hear. Or this has given me hope, or this has given me comfort. And it fills me up, because I came back questioning, why am I still here? What am I supposed to do with this? And there's a documentary film I did called Back from the Light. I met a woman named Yvonne Sneeden, who's lovely. and we met at a conference, and the conference was about after effects, this particular workshop I took. And in the workshop, it was about not so much the near-death experience, which of course everybody wants to know, but when you come back and you're still here, and what am I supposed to do with this? And I have to explain things to people. And, sometimes things you say, you sound a little crazy. And so this documentary, Back from the Light, is about how we move on from that. And Dr. Mary Neal is part of the documentary, and Dave Bennett, and a lot of really wonderful people, but talking about here and now and how we move on and make the most of our life. And I think that's what our project, our play, is about. It's really a conversation about these things and these feelings, and making a difference in other people's lives, each of us, and a ripple effect, I guess you could say, that we all have.
And I love that the angle that it comes from, and just like your film. Now, I've seen the film, and I think what struck me is it wasn't so much about the cross through the light. It was about the trip back. And, I can't imagine what it must be like to be the mother, father, husband, whatever, of someone who has had this experience, and they're telling you, but I know you've been praying for me, and I know you're glad I'm here, but I'm angry. I don't want to be here. I want to be back there. It was so beautiful. And I think that was the angle that really struck me with the film that you created. I thought it was fascinating, really. Actually, we have a clip, don't we?
You do, yeah. Actually, there you have the trailer. I don't know if it's just really a minute or so. People might like to see it just to get a taste of it.
It is very quick. Let me put it on just so they can get a taste of it, and a taste of your work as well.
670-46, come in. There you go. 77 Benny, 77 ambulance 613 Southwestern.
Going into cardiac arrest.
During the near-death experience, that purity of nirvana, that perfect love, that wholeness, when you're separated from that and you come back into the physical body, you miss it so much. You don't want to be back here. You no longer fear death, quite the opposite. You want to die because you want to be back there and experience that again.
I didn't want to return to Earth, and I didn't want to return to my life. I had a wonderful husband. I had 4 young children that I loved dearly, and I felt a little guilty that if I'd had the choice, I would have left again.
Death doesn't scare me. It's something when you go to the other side and you come back, you're like, well, I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid of actually not living.
I tried to talk to family and friends, and they just, bad reactions. They had bad reactions because they didn't understand it. I think it probably frightened them.
One of the things that I felt very strongly about it was not entering into a debate about near-death experiences. The experience is the experience, but really what matters is the after effects.
Just the fact that you were gone and left this world, briefly though it might be, is mind-shattering.
You are so convinced that what you've seen on the other side is so real, it may not line up with what the church believes in.
If you don't stop talking insane like this, I'm going to have you put away. And he explained what that meant.
We are so excited about what happened to us that we want to tell the world.
It's not the fact of having this experience. It's to survive it. It's to make sense. Why this happened to me? What am I supposed to do with this?
First of all, you have to worry, is your husband or wife or your mate going crazy? Once you realize they're not crazy, then you have this other struggle. If they're not crazy, my worldview has to change.
Wow. Every time I see that, Well, I was going to say is Cindy Bennett's words that they really strike me, and that's why we chose to put that there. She says, if all of this is true, if I'm not crazy, right, then my worldview has to change of what this means, ultimately. And I think that Providence of the Heart, the show that we're doing, is that conversation live on stage. It's like it's a conversation. It's sort of like a cross, I guess, between like a TED talk, like an inspirational talk with the audience, as opposed to a strict play. There's sort of a breakdown of that fourth wall where we're going to be talking, directly to people, but it's not a Q&A kind of a thing, but sharing stories of exactly that, these journeys of how we were motivated and changed, and how we saw signs along growing up. For me, psychic things that happened to me that scared the bejesus out of me, and then I learned to accept it. And for you, as you started to see things and feel things as well, and that's the link we all have, so many of us. So that's kind of what this project is about. And I know it's hard to describe it because I don't think anyone's done anything quite like this. There's the conversations, there's the talks, there's the mediumship, there are the near-death experiencers just talking about their experience. This is kind of putting all of those pieces together and trying maybe to make a little sense out of it for people.
Right. And I can make sense of, if I'm not crazy, then my worldview has to change, because there was that moment that I thought I was losing my mind. Look, I spent, you know this, 35 years of my life in a funeral home.
Right.
And there were moments of strange premonitions. And I mean, we'll talk about it in the show. There were things that happened. But when I got out, it was like the you-know-what hit the fan. And I really thought I was losing my mind. I started recording things because I didn't believe it. I thought, I have to record this, because if I show it to you and you can hear it, then I must not be crazy. And if I'm crazy, then there's something going on here that I'm not prepared for.
Yeah.
And it's the same idea, quite honestly.
Exactly. And for me, with psychic things, where I would see things, and one incident that I'll talk about in great detail in the play, but I saw something happen live as it was happening. I literally left my body, left the room, was floating in space, and saw a plane crash. My mother thought I was nuts, but I told her about it. And then turns out it was real. It was actually happening. I didn't know how to explain that. So stories like that, I think, are quite compelling, and, I think it should be kind of fun, actually, a fun evening.
It is. It is. And I think everybody loves this stuff, but I think we all have those moments.
Oh, yeah. We just don't know how to listen to it. We don't always acknowledge it, or it scares us, or we just pass it off as something else. And I have learned, since my near-death experience in particular, I always joke, it's like turning up the volume from that point on, particularly in these last 10 years, intensely so, is that it's paying attention to it, and that things start to fall into place when I start being true to that purpose, that mission, those feelings, even intuition, listening to that inner voice that says, go back and check if you turned off the gas in the oven, or do you need it? Because maybe those 10 seconds of delay mean missing that car accident or that intersection, or maybe that feeling of calling someone that you haven't thought of for a while, or for work or something, and saying, you know what, pick up the phone. And they say, I was just thinking about you. I mean, all of these little common coincidences, I think they're all tied together in this grand cosmic scheme. And I think that's what you and I talk about a lot in this, is when those things have happened, and when we didn't listen to them, right? And when we did, and how surreal some of it is, but it's real life. It's like, this isn't made up. People say you couldn't write this shit. Can I say that on the radio show?
Oh, you just did. So no bleep in here. I don't have somebody. No,
if it didn't happen to me, myself, I wouldn't believe half of it, but I've lived it, and you have, and so I think this is important to share.
Yeah, and now here we are. But Nancy says, too late. You are.
Sorry, Nancy.
Sorry.
Sorry. Then we'll put a bleep on it for the whatever.
We'll go back in now. No, trust me, it's good. But I think it's fascinating. And you talk about, I just missed the elevator in the World Trade Center, and then the
right.
All right, I missed my flight, and you're so aggravated, then you realize the plane crashed. And these are things. I was talking with someone last week. It was the amazing Kreskin had that exact.
Oh, right.
To get a flight. He was flying in out of Newark. He got there. The plane had already left, and the plane crashed. And these are the things that it's just those little moments. Are they coincidences? I don't know. Maybe not. It's not your time.
Yeah.
But
Which is also, we talk about that. I mean, there are things you can choose to go left or right, I say to a lot of people, and make certain decisions. But ultimately, the night that I had my heart attack, I didn't know that I only had 2 minutes left from the time I hit 911 and the ambulance came and I got in the ambulance. And then before I knew it, I was gone. I couldn't have planned that. I mean, there's no way,
Right.
But I'm here. I'm still here, like the Sondheim song.
I'm glad you're here because I feel like we have a lot of work to do. We have some.
We do.
And I think people are going to really appreciate this. The show that we have, I mean, we have bigger plans for this show than what is coming up in November.
Yeah.
This is the first step. This is
the very first step. This is like a newbie thing. So people are going to see this, are going to see it in its infancy if they come,
It could change and blossom and become different over time. I think that the message is the same, but it's don't you think, you've done this kind of work because you've opened shows in London and New York and other places, but this is like the first step when a show, you want to gauge reactions and understand
right
what works, what doesn't work. And that's really what this is at this point.
Well, it's interesting because originally in theater, we call a workshop when you workshop a show. And I used the word workshop earlier because it was a class. And I know that you and I talked about, oh gosh, if we call this a workshop, which it is, it's a theatrical workshop, but we didn't want people to think it was a class they were coming to because it's not. They get to experience it like a night of theater and things. So, and you've got this QR code thing that you did because we're giving a discount away, aren't we? For like anyone who watches this show, if they want to go on Eventbrite through here and buy tickets. Is that what that is?
Yeah, it is. So tickets are only $25 to begin with.
Right.
I mean, spend more than that at dinner, but you're going to get $10 off of that. We want to get people in the audience. We want to hear their reactions. We want to find out what you think. So if you use promo code POH, that's Providence of the Heart, 10, POH 10, just as you see at the bottom, it's only $15 for the tickets. And if you just scan the little QR code on the screen, you can go directly to it. Or I can give you an easy website. It's my website. If you go to mediumscottallan.com, you'll see it there and all the Eventbrite information under events. But if you want to scan that, it'll take you right there. And $10 will get you, the promo code will get you $10 off, and it's only $15. It's November 2nd at 7 o'clock at the Alley Theater in Middleborough.
Yeah.
Nancy wants to come. I'll give her a ride. I'll suffer through
Yeah,
it.
right. Yes, and it's very local. I mean, I'm thrilled that the Alley Theater and Lorna Brunel is giving us this space to work in. It's a wonderful theater. They're very prolific. They do a lot of things, and it seems like a very creative community. So I'm looking forward to that. And it might take a couple of years to get to Broadway with something like this, or to tour it around. And gosh, guys, tickets then are what, like $400 or $500. So this is a deal.
Oh, it's a deal. And for those of you who follow Andrea Perron, well, first of all, there's a couple of correlations here. You and I are going to be on Andrea Perron's show on Friday night.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I'm honored. I'm honored. This is so cool.
Andrea, for those who don't, probably everybody that's in this room probably knows, she is the woman that wrote the books that inspired the Conjuring movies. I was honored enough to be on her show a little over a year ago, and I'm honored to be on it again. And we're going to be talking about Providence of the Heart. But here's what's interesting. We are at the Alley Theater in Middleborough on November 2nd. On October 29th, Andrea is going to be at the Alley Theater talking about The Conjuring. So she's there right before us.
Yeah.
And we're going to be right after, but we are going to be on her show this Friday night at 10 o'clock, A World Awakening with Andrea Perron. So I want to make sure we answer questions. We've been on almost a half hour. I don't know. Is there any
gosh. Wow.
about the show? Well, time flies when you're having a good time, But anybody have any questions about the show? I really am just so excited about everything that we're doing and planning. And, we haven't even scratched the surface of what is in this show. I mean,
no, not really. And it's again, so exciting, Scott, to work with you because the combined stories and the flow and how we go back and forth with our lives and growing up and trying to figure things out and then culminating into this project, and I feel it's giving back. Where did the idea of the show come from? Literally, Nancy, I and I'll let Scott answer from his perspective, but it was talking about doing something together. And first, was it going to be a gallery? I think we actually were going to call it like the medium and the nearly dead guy. It was going to be like a reading, and we talk about being nearly dead. Right. And then the more we talked about it, it was like there's something more profound. Like we were almost being guided to say, I want this to inspire people. I feel that the conversations I mentioned earlier, one-on-one with people, when it really seemed to help, we needed to inspire. I wanted to inspire people in a more solid way, and theatrically to tell these stories seemed to do it. And then that's how that kind of congealed, I would say. Is that accurate, Scott?
I agree. And you know, as we started to think about it, I mean, I could do a gallery. We were thinking like after intermission, there might be a gallery. But I do galleries all the time. I've got a bunch of them planned out over the fall and winter. It's a whole different thing. Anybody can come to the gallery. This is so different. This is so emotional. It's so deep in terms of what we've experienced personally, and you know, how this has evolved and has changed who we are. You know, I'm a totally different person than I was 10 years ago.
Oh gosh.
Nothing is the same. Nothing is the same. I went through some terrifying moments, to be honest, you know, to get where I am. But you know, here we are, and it's all for the better. And I think having this show and just being able to work with you has been, you know, the opportunity of a lifetime.
Oh, well.
So I really am grateful for that. But I want people to just remember, POH 10, if you want to come. Oh, poor Melissa says she's in Kansas City. But look.
Oh, well, we hope to do it again. I mean, if this goes well, we'll refine it. We'll get feedback. We'll learn how to tighten it, like every show that goes through a tryout period and a development period. So this is exciting. Just part of the anyone who's into theater alone, just being part of this creative process, that's exciting. Apart from the subject matter, to me, as the creative elements come together and it grows, and as we get into a larger theater or with more technical capabilities, Scott and I have talked. We're going to have projections, you know, and images that go along with what we're saying, and there's some lighting because it's a theater, but even more elaborately. And when can we do a scrim, and when can we do some different effects, and you know, have things that become more theatrical as time goes on? That is yet to be. And yet the core of it is still going to be a powerful show.
Right. I agree. And I think for Melissa, if you do the promo code and you get $10 off, you can put it towards your airfare. If you want to. No. Anyway, I want to thank everyone for joining us. And I would like to, I don't know, do you have anything else you want to say, Bob, before we, I think we've had
Thank you. Thank you to everyone. And Scott, thank you for, you know, being part of this. And thank you for, you know, putting us on the Paranormal Project radio show, because it is tough to get word out when something is that new. So if anyone's watching this either live now or you're watching a recording of this later on, I mean, please do share it. Please do tell your friends, and please do think about joining us. You know, it'll make it more exciting.
Right. I'm going to leave the show with one little nugget that I'm going to play, just another one of our little clips. And then we'll see you next time. Robert's going to be on the Paranormal Project in a few weeks too. I don't remember the date exactly, but you're coming on the actual show on Wednesday night. So thanks for joining us, everybody. I'm going to leave you with this little clip, and we'll talk to you all soon. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Hi, I'm Robert Neal Marshall.
Hi, everybody. My name is Scott Allan.
And we have a very special performance of a brand new play, sort of a workshop, if you will, at the Alley Theater, November 2nd, 2023 in Middleborough, Massachusetts.
Discover the magic of storytelling as Robert and I invite you to join us on a remarkable journey of discovery and everyday affirmations that life is truly eternal.